The US President Joe Biden has arrived in Japan for the second leg of his trip around Asia ahead of meeting with the Quad leaders, including the incoming Prime Minister Anthony Albanese tomorrow. Joining us live now is political scientist at the University of Sydney to talk about this, Simon Jackman. Simon, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. So the US hasn't had a relationship with an Australian Labor leader for almost 10 years. How, if at all, do you expect things to change?
Look, it never hurts. There's a little bit of political simpatico between the Democratic President of the United States and a Labor Party government in Australia. That doesn't hurt. But it is really the icing on the top of the cake, to be perfectly honest. The structural underpinnings of US-Australia cooperation, particularly in the security space, are so strong and so deep. There's an awful lot of continuity there. But the fact that Biden will be reaching across the table and looking at a fellow social democrat in the eye, in the face of Albanese, and it'll be a politician whose story he gets. And I'm sure the briefing notes he's got on Albanese will stress the inner city electorate coming up through the ranks of the party. That will be a story that sounds a lot like Democratic Party careers in the United States.
With Anthony Albanese, though, and Penny Wong unlikely to be as gung-ho as, say, Peter Dutton has been, how will the US respond to that? Will it be as wary?
Look, I think there'll be some very careful parsing on the American side of the early statements about China in particular. And that's why I think this first closed-door meeting, where there's no parsing to do, you're hearing directly from the principals, as it were. It'll be a principals conversation. Usually it's a hot agenda item for any incoming Australian Prime Minister. Get thee to Washington quickly, early in your term. He's doing it on day one. Right? They're getting that part of the meet and greet and getting to know you done. Albanese would have met Biden in the past on delegations to Washington, but the key agenda item is, where are you guys on the Quad Labor government? And the answer will be, we're all in, just like our predecessor. And I think they'll get down to brass tacks on the Solomons, Peter. I think that is agenda item number one. Okay, where to from here? What does stepping up together look like? Because is PNG next cab off the rank? PNG's got an election coming up. I believe it's as soon as next week, next month at the latest. So there's plenty of business for them to transact. And just looking over the last 6 months, Peter, is the last observation I make. There's been, I think, those statements from the Labor, then opposition, now becoming a government, I think pretty much in line. It was very difficult, and by design, to find a cigarette paper's worth of difference between Labor and the coalition on some of the really big ticket items. They went after the coalition very hard on the Solomons, and that's, politics as usual in the middle of a campaign. But at root, there is very, very little to distinguish, I think, the big picture settings of both the coalition and Labor on some of the most important defence and security questions the country faces.
So when it comes to, say, the Solomon Islands, what do you think the Americans will want to hear from Anthony Albanese and Penny Wong?
That we are committed to not only what our predecessors did, but then some. We're going to up the aid budget. Here are the soft power things that we are uniquely equipped to do. And by the way, Peter, there's so much came onto the table. I'd say it's not too little, but it was too late. There is a ton across the length and breadth of the Australian government under the coalition with respect to Pacific Step Up. Not all of it has been actioned, and a lot of it remains proposals, but there is a ton there, and it's time to really just take that and turn up the burners on all of it. But here's the key thing. It's what we need to hear from the Americans as well about their commitment to the region, because America is the big enchilada here. There's some things Australia can do and the region wants Australia to do, and then there are other things. It's really about, why do they want Australia? Because when you get Australia, you're pulling in the United States as well, and it's time for the US to continue what they've been doing, a little slowly with diplomatic presence throughout the Pacific Island nations. Time for the burners to come up on that one as well, and that'll be the message, I think, Penny Wong in particular will be keen to deliver.
And probably away from the Indian and Japanese leaders, do they have conversations about AUKUS and nuclear submarines? Does there have to be an increased commitment there on both parties?
Yeah, agree, and I think they will try and find some time on the sidelines, as we say. The Quad thinks these things are awfully stage managed, but I think they will try and find some time to talk about AUKUS, which is key, right? Yeah. Now, the good news about AUKUS is that both sides of American politics are bought in. There was a very high-level delegation came to Australia only about a month to 2 months before our election. Lindsey Graham and Joe Courtney, the Friends of the Australia caucus, they are all in and perhaps surprisingly enthusiastic about it. I think, again, just some reassurance that what Labor has said through the campaign since AUKUS was announced, that they are all in as well. And I think the real question is, what can we deliver? What can we point to? The subs are a long way away in anyone's reasonable estimation. I think it's getting hands on that tech and, frankly, some weapons platforms, as Greg Sheridan on this channel is keen of pointing out, and rightly so. Time to really make some progress on that, and that'll be less about Penny Wong's stack in DFAT and more over in the defence side of the ledger. But very, very keen that this Democratic administration hears from a new Labor administration here that they are all in on AUKUS and with haste.
Okay. Simon Jackman, good to see you. Thanks as always. We'll talk to you soon.